Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Good morning to you all. In the program, Mr. Laamiri was chairing. He has asked me. Yeah, right here. Yeah, thank you. I thought this room was so small we could almost do away without, but so Mr. Laamiri has insisted that I chair, but there isn't much chairing to do. Everybody's going to speak. I think the angles we are taking are complementary. I will talk about Moroccan British relations, particularly academic and cultural, in the 21st century. So now, with a little bit of outlook to the future. And Mr. Laamiri will talk about history, but will tell us some untold stories in the diplomatic relations. And Mr. Bukawi will talk about the tradition of exchange of presents and gifts in the diplomatic circles. And Mr. Hill will address something that the three of us will not have addressed, and that's the economic and commercial relations, investment, and the future. So without further ado, I have written what I want to say, just to save us time. So ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues and friends, first I would like to commend the Ministry of Culture for this successful organization, particularly ordering appropriate weather for this day. And for opening this magnificent event to a larger audience, to an additional language and discourse community, to the growing Anglophone intellectual community with its representations in history, in culture, in thought, in creativity, and in innovation. Both countries, the panel topic, as you already know, revolves around Moroccan-UK relations, which are, as you know, several centuries old. What historians have recorded in both countries as official diplomatic launch of diplomatic relations dates to early 13th century, exactly 1213, with King John of England and Sultan Mohamed Nasir of Almohad, Morocco, contemplating and discussing through English envoys to Morocco potential cooperation and alliance against a common competitor, France. Does this sound familiar after 800 years? Perhaps geography is more of a determining factor than we think, especially when we factor in these relationships, Gibraltar. So much has happened in the 800 plus years since then. You can imagine the challenge the panelists face in selecting what to share with you today in 1 hour. But out of respect for historians and for the time allotted this panel session by the organizers, I will briefly address academic and cultural relations in the 21st century, with focus on some events I had the pleasure and honor to participate in as president of an Anglophone university, but particularly as Secretary General of the Moroccan British Society and as an official in charge of higher education. Let me start by saying that this century has seen unprecedented evolution in educational, human, and cultural activities involving the two nations, not to mention economic and commercial relations. The number of students heading to British universities is growing steadily, surpassing 1,300 today. The faculty and student exchanges are at high levels with over 70 each year. Joint research projects increased substantially according to Scopus, with an average of over 320 papers published jointly every year by university researchers from Morocco and British University. English language as a subject and as a medium of instruction is gaining ground fast, with high preference among the young and the not so young, as more degree granting programs are offered in English, including in medical studies. How did we get here? What major contribution did the Moroccan British Society make? After the beginning of the 21st century, Her Highness Princess Lalla Joumala, President of the Moroccan British Society, took on the responsibility of boosting Moroccan British relations through the work of an NGO collaborating with whoever can bring in added value. She had studied at the University of London herself and gotten to know the founder of the British Moroccan Society, Mr. Frank Lowe, who was only too eager to have a dynamic vis-a-vis in Morocco. Mr. Abdelkrim Bennani, who just walked in, head of the Royal Court, and I joined the association, which was able to achieve some landmark goals among the ones sought out in full collaboration with the British Council and the British Embassy. It created mechanisms to support student and faculty exchanges. It enhanced interfaith dialogue by co-organizing with the British Library and in London and the National Library in Morocco a 6-month exhibit in London of manuscripts of the 3 religions of the book and related themes and activities in parallel. It organized academic events with Oxford, Cambridge, the University of London, and their counterparts in Morocco, including Mohamed V, Al-Akhawain, and Sidi Mohammed bin Abdullah universities. It facilitated mobility of students and researchers in both directions. But for more sustainability, it raised funds to set up a chair fellowship in Moroccan and Mediterranean studies at St. Anthony's College at the University of Oxford. The chair, the fellowship, has been held by Professor Michael Willis since 2004. One of the events organized by Moroccan British Society in direct relationship with this panel was an international conference held at the National Library in 2013 to celebrate the closing of the 8th century since the first official English embassy to Morocco. The title retained for the conference was 800 Years of Moroccan British Diplomatic Relations, and some posters are right outside the room you can visit. Among the participants were historians, women and men of literature, political scientists, sociologists, economists, diplomats, and chief executives from both countries in charge of advancing the relations. I am proud to have been involved in this important event, which led to the publication of its proceedings in the volume edited by Professor Mohamed Laamiri and myself. Today, some of the books, Today, the Morocco-UK relations cover more ground than they have in the past, with over 70,000 British residents of Moroccan descent. The times are appropriate, encouraging, and offer many opportunities for win-win sustainable partnerships. Ongoing examples include a transfer of clean energy mega project, the launch of British universities in Morocco, such as Sunderland and Coventry, a growing number of Moroccan students in the UK, higher trade and investment, but above all, there are positive, trusting relations between the two heads of state, the two monarchs, His Majesty King Mohammed VI and His Majesty King Charles III, following in the footsteps of the late Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II and the late King Hassan II. The development and growth of the binational relations is greatly helped by these relationships, by the monarchs who share not only political, but also faith leadership in their respective countries, as head of the Anglican Church and as commander of the faithful, with much openness and inclusiveness in these faith-challenging times. Clearly, the dynamic relations today are being enhanced both from top-down and bottom-up approaches to multi-secular, multi-sector relations. In a world where conflict, wars, competition, and confrontations abound, this is a very welcome international breath of fresh air and promises to continue to move us slowly but surely. Thank you for your attention. Yeah. And now Mr. Mohamed Laamiri, who was supposed to speak first.
Well, good morning. Well, today I'm going to talk about pre-20th century embassies between Morocco and Britain, some untold stories. Some untold stories, yeah. Well, for more than 800 years, British-Moroccan relations have been going on with, have been going on with an exchange of envoys, emissaries, and ambassadors. My concern here is not with their diplomatic missions, but I'm concerned with some untold stories, things that happened to these ambassadors, the difficulties they met, the way they performed their missions, the things they experienced in a foreign country. As you know, ambassadors in those times, an ambassador is not something you see every day in London or in Marrakesh. It was a rare event. It was almost a kind of a national event, and an ambassador is received as a head of state sometimes. So, to illustrate this, or these happenings, or these occurrences, I'm going to talk about and give very short or flashes about some experiences of those ambassadors. Our first ambassador is Ahmed, this unfortunate ones. I'll talk about two unfortunate British ambassadors and two unfortunate Moroccan ambassadors. The first Moroccan ambassador is Ahmed bin Ahmed Cardenas. Ahmed bin Ahmed Cardenas was sent by Moulay Ismail to Queen Anne in 1706. He was unsuccessful and left a bad impression in London because stories leaked about his behavior towards and his problems with his servants. He sent two of them to prison and turned out two others in London without any means. So he's not in a good position to be a diplomatic interlocutor. Shortly after his return to Meknes, reports about his behavior in London were reported to Moulay Ismail. They put him in prison. So you see that the function of an ambassador is not always easy. The second unlucky emissary or ambassador is Bentoura Dizari. He is of Armenian origin, and he was sent by Moulay Ismail to Queen Anne in August 1710. While waiting for his royal audience, Zari was notified that Queen Anne intended to send back with him to Moulay Ismail some 20 spotted deer as a gift. You know that in those times, Moulay Ismail sent lions and tigers, and English sent deer and animals like this. Well, hoping to please his king, Moulay Ismail, he bought some others from his own pocket. Unfortunately, this purchase and the expense of keeping the animals and paying the staff that took care of them, he lost all his money. So he had to ask for help. He wrote to Lord Dartmouth asking for Her Majesty's financial support, since he explained his money has all been spent to feed the animals and to pay the servants who took care of them. Of course, a very awkward position for an ambassador. That is, you are interlocutor and you ask money from the other party, which is not a very good position. Bad luck again befell Bentoura when news came from Morocco that more English ships had been taken by privateers from New Salé. In reprisal, Moulay Ismail, in reprisal against Moulay Ismail, Lord Dartmouth confined Zari to house arrest. In January 1730, as a consequence, Zari's mission was, of course, a failure. This is another failure. Let's see now the British. The first one is William Latton. George II sent William Latton to Moulay Abdullah bin Ismail. Latton, who arrived in Tétouan from Gibraltar in 1749, began difficult negotiations with Qaid Mohamed Toumim, the governor of Tangier, regarding the ransom of some 52 British captives. But under pressure, Latin accepted the payment of the required sum by the governor, a price which was considered by London as too excessive, and for which he will be rebuked, as we are going to see. Another unhappy event befell Latin when Governor Tumim asked him to provide British crew for the English warship, from the English warship in Tetuan Bay to navigate the Sultan's ship to Gibraltar. Latin refused to comply with the governor's request, and the governor confined him to house arrest again and threatened to put him in chains. Latin wrote asking for help from London, but the answer was a rebuke from the minister, a rebuke for his mismanagement of the negotiations. He was recalled to London and dismissed in shame. So you see this, the function of an ambassador is not always an easy one. The second one, now we are going to see an embassy which turned into a sad drama. On the 27th of 1757, James Reed was appointed General Counsel to Morocco. He went to Marrakesh to negotiate the release of slaves for whom but when he returned to Rabat, he learned that his ship, the Siren, had driven ashore and destroyed one of the Sultan's ships. The Sultan was so infuriated that he asks for replacement, immediate replacement of his ship, and they put him into house arrest, waiting for a ship to be sent from London. With difficulty, of course, he was released after signing, after agreeing to pay a big sum of money for that. But sorry, it was not really sorry, it's another one. So the Sultan threatened Reed, because when he asked for the replacement, he threatened him to send him as a slave to Meknes. The poor consul was so shocked that he committed suicide. So you see here, I'm not telling this, that ambassadors, it's not his fault, but sometimes ambassadors are put in situations that are very difficult and it was not easy to be an ambassador in those times. Now let's move to more joyful stories. I think that I have it's already dramatic enough. So let's move to something else. The first one is just to give detail. There are many details, but I'll just give you some flashes about these things. Qaid Jawdar bin Abdullah. Qaid Jawdar bin Abdullah was sent by Mohamed Sheikh to King Charles I in 1637. He is remembered for the ceremony of his entry into London as his, I have a problem with my glasses. As his coach, that is his entry to London. His coach was followed by 100 other coaches. It was after sunset with torches and everything. It was a big procession. And all London came to see the ambassador. And with his stately clothes and all that, he gave an impression of a great man. He is also remembered for the publication, that is when he lived, there was a publication about him and about his passage which was very positive. And these ambassadors dispelled the negative image that was going on about Moors, Muslims, etc. So when they saw these people, they saw their behavior, etc., it dispelled much of those very negative images that were circulating at the time. The second happy ambassador was Qaid Mohamed bin Haddou al-Attar. He's famous. Ben Haddou, Moulay Ismail's famous emissary to London and Morocco's second ambassador to England, was received by King Charles II on 11th of January 1682. On his way to the royal audience, Ben Haddou's procession with Moroccan exotic musicians, he's taking the gifts to the Sultan, and he took with him Moroccan musicians with drums and pipes, طبالة والغياطة, and raised so much curiosity in London that the police found it very difficult to keep the crowd from the ambassador. So it was a real event in London at the time, and the knowledge about ambassadors was circulating at the time. The ambassador and his retinue made a good impression on the London society of the day, not only because of the exotic nature of their Moroccan dress, but also because of the natural dignity and courtesy with which they invariably showed, which they showed in public. Because of the good impression, he left wherever he goes. Ben Haddou was the first Moroccan ambassador to be received at the University of Oxford. And he is the first Moroccan to be made honorary fellow of the Royal Society. So you see, again, this image dispels all those negative stories that were told about Muslims in England at the time. Ben Haddou's exotic dress and his horsemanship and skills in Hyde Park were immortalized by famous painting of the Moroccan ambassador on his horse in Hyde Park by Sir Godfrey Kneller. Now let's move to the British. Charles Stuart's successful embassy. One of the most successful embassies sent from London to Moulay Ismail was that of Charles Stuart, which resulted in the signature of the 1721 Treaty of Trade and Peace with Morocco. After long negotiations with the Sultan's ministers and the terms of the treaty agreed on, and while Stuart was waiting for the signature of the ambassador, he received a message from the palace telling him that he could go home, he could leave. You imagine here the ambassador, after many months of negotiations, it was frustration that all his efforts would be aborted. So, but he did not give up. He wrote a very polite and diplomatic letter with compliments and praise to her, to Moulay Ismail's wife. He wrote to Sultana al-Aziz Tabbah. She's called al-Aziz Tabbah, explaining his frustration and asking for her help to finalize the treaty. He addressed her as powerful lady and the mother of Moulay Abdullah. And she answered him on the back of the letter, to the ambassador who sent me this letter. And she gave her answer. With her intervention, Stuart got full satisfaction when Moulay Ismail ratified the treaty, explaining that it was just a misunderstanding. The happy ambassador went home with the Peace and Trade Treaty, which was to be the basis of many other treaties between the two countries. The 300th anniversary of this treaty, 1721, 2021, 300 years, the British Council celebrated this event by publishing a booklet to which I had the honor to contribute. That is because it is very important, treaty for their relations. My last ambassador is the one you maybe all know, John Drumday. Well, John Drumday spent 45 years in Morocco, first as attaché to his father, and from 1845 to 1886 as consul general, then minister resident, then minister plenipotentiary. His long stay in the country, his mastery of Moroccan Arabic, his many Moroccan friends, his agents and his spies in the main cities and ports of Morocco allowed him to have a full insight into Moroccan society, but also a power and influence in Moroccan affairs that no other ambassador had ever had. As Roger says, Drumday had attained a position of preeminence over all foreign diplomats in Morocco. Never again would a British representative win such esteem and affection from Moroccans. A lot has been said about his diplomatic achievements. I want to talk a bit about his cultural legacy. Well, John Drumday was a fine speaker and a writer with an exquisite, precise, and literary style. He published a book entitled Western Barbary, Its Wild Tribes and Savage Animals. It was published in 1844. And he went to Larache, to the tribes of Larache, to look for a barb, a horse for Queen Victoria. That is a pure barb. And he went with his all Moroccan friends, hunters. and they told him stories, etc. And he described his experience. It's a very nice text about the understanding and the description of tribes near Larache. There is in it a story of the six-fingered Ali Boufrahi, a very nice story which is worth being a film. Six-fingered statue, and this highwayman at the time, Moulay Ismail. And in it there is love, there is romance, there is he fought one of the Moulay Slimani's strongest slaves. He killed him. He went into the forest, etc. He was turned out when he was young by the Fqih because he did not learn his Quran. And he quitted his home, etc. And there's a long story about him, which is told, which is forgotten now. It's a legend, but it is told by that is drummed in this text. He is also remembered as an ardent sportsman. In the introduction, as an ardent sportsman and as a lover of wild nature. In the introduction to his memoirs, we read, under his rule, sport flourished in the environs of Tangier. It was then that pig sticking in Morocco reached the highest perfection and gave pleasure to many Europeans and nations. For those who are not familiar with pig sticking, it's hunting the wild boar, sanglier, on horseback with a spear. It is an exciting sport, but also a dangerous one. And John Drumday was an expert in that. On his retirement in 1886, Hay wrote, "I shall never cease to take a deep interest in His Majesty's welfare, from whom I have received constant proofs of kindly feelings, which not be forgotten." Sultan Moulay Hassan answered him that he regarded Hay as a sincere friend and said that his departure caused great sorrow in Morocco. In conclusion, let me just say that this paper is also meant as a tribute and as an homage to all British and Moroccan ambassadors who braved difficulties, pressures from their own governments and also from the governments of the other party to promote and maintain these 8 centuries of good relations between Morocco and Britain. Thank you.
From one Consul General to another. So, Drummond.
Thank you.
Mr. Consul General, Tom Hill.
Thank you. Well, I mean, fortunately, some of those difficulties I haven't encountered yet in Morocco, but there's still time. First of all, I'd just like to say thank you. It's an honor to be on a panel with 3 gentlemen who have spent so much time and in their illustrious careers studying UK Morocco relations. So thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to be here. My name is Tom Hill. I'm the country director for the Department for Business and Trade here in Morocco. I'll just start with the numbers. So our trading relationship at the moment is about £3.5 billion over the past year. That's about 40 billion dirhams. It's quite low in terms of our market share in Morocco. We've got about 2% of Moroccan imports come from the UK. So it's low, but it's increasing, and we've seen quarter-on-quarter growth over the past 2 years. And actually, since the entry into force of the UK-Morocco Association Agreement, which entered into force on the 1st of January 2021, and that, of course, as you will know, is 300 years after the agreement in 1721. So an illustrious history, but we're bringing that relationship up to the modern day. And I'm very confident, and I think myself and my colleagues here in DBT, we consider ourselves quite lucky to be in Morocco doing this job at this time. We think there's a huge amount of potential to grow trade and to grow relations, and I think I'll just talk about 3 reasons for that. First is the people. I've just been handed a book by Khalid on sort of Moroccans in Manchester. There is a very large diaspora of Moroccans in the UK. Our previous trade envoy, who was the Member of Parliament for South Wiltshire, he was particularly keen to be the trade envoy for Morocco because he had more Moroccans in his constituency than anywhere else in the UK other than London. And I think, you know, we have 7 British schools in Morocco now, hopefully more to come. And as you said, over 1,500 Moroccan students studying in the UK. We now have a UK university, Coventry, that has set up a campus here. We have Cardiff Met, and hopefully more to come there as well. And I think one of the interesting things with our job is that the demand is coming from students. So students are wanting to learn in English. They're wanting to widen their horizons and the tools at their disposal to enter that global marketplace. And they understand that English and a British education is a good way to do that. I think the second reason why the future is bright on the relations is that there's a lot of common ambition. Naturally, you know, that covers everything from security, you know, which is a key topic at the moment. But you know, in happier topics, in 2028, the UK will be hosting the European Championships, and of course, in 2030, Morocco will be hosting the FIFA World Cup. That's a huge opportunity, and sports diplomacy can play such a key role in relations. We're also like-minded partners on everything from on the climate side, with Morocco hosting COP in 2016 and the UK hosting it in 2021. And there's wide and deep dialogue there on how we can work together to drive net zero and increase sustainability. And then one of the fun things about my job is I get to work and see the many areas of collaboration that exist at the moment. Last month I was in Meknes for SIAM, the Salon, the agricultural fair. And one of our key exhibitors has been working for the past 4 years with UMCSP on a research project on sustainable agriculture. We're looking at increasing that, but that is driving PhD studies and collaboration in the agricultural sector that will not only benefit UK and Morocco, but will also benefit farmers across Africa. And I think that's one of the reasons why Morocco is so interesting, because it's a like-minded partner, but with strong links into wider Africa. And I think you'll see a lot more activity there. And we're already starting to see the collaboration around the World Cup. So the Casablanca Stadium, the tender was just won by a UK firm, Populous. The design for the stadium was based on the concept of the Mussem, the tent, which takes lots of inspiration from Moroccan cultural history. And of course, just looking at this picture here, you have the newly built theatre in Rabat that was designed by an Iraqi British architect, Zaha Hadid, of Hadid Architects. So we're already seeing the new sort of history that we're making in terms of UK-Morocco relations. And just to bring it all back in terms of why we're here at this fair, as I said, the demand is there from young people, from students, to study in English. And obviously one of the ways that we can support that is by helping them read in English and giving exposure to English language books, publishers and storytellers. So we're delighted to be here with some fantastic publishers from the UK, Anna and Caroline from PB Books and Award. You can find them at the UK stand in Pavilion C. Please do come and talk to them, because they are the people that are actually, in terms of bringing the UK to Morocco, doing more than anyone else, and to kind of build those cultural ties with the young people of Morocco today. And yeah, that's very exciting.
And to close our interventions, I think that we left the present to the end. So,
thank you very much, Professor Ouaouicha. I'm delighted to be here among distinguished scholars and diplomats. I'll be talking about Moroccan diplomacy and British-Moroccan encounters. It is very rich, multifaceted, and very ancient. Professor Ouaouicha referred to the 13th century. That's one of the beginnings of Moroccan relations with Britain. If we look at Moroccan relation encounters, Moroccan British relations encounters, we can divide them maybe in the pre-colonial period to two phases. The first phase involves from the Renaissance to the 18th century. Here we have military alliances between Morocco and Britain, and ransoming of captives, Moroccan captives in Britain, British captives in Morocco, as well as military alliances against Spain, Gibraltar, and Tangier, the occupation of Tangier. The 19th century, we have a different relations. Here, more and more Moroccans started to immigrate to England, basically to Manchester. Actually, the Moroccans started to settle in Britain in the late 18th century, and there was a huge community everywhere in England, particularly in Manchester, but also in London and various parts of the. They were either peddlers selling goods on the streets or merchants trading with furs, and here many Moroccans who immigrated to England started to assume British citizenship. So this is the 19th century. Moroccan diplomacy here is marked with the try to involve Britain in checking the colonial ambitions of Spain and France in particular, curbing the application for protection. And what also marked Moroccan ambassador here in the 19th century is that we start to see Moroccan travel literature about Britain. So we have the first accounts, though there were many Moroccan ambassadors to England throughout histories, but the first accounts about ambassadors or their secretaries about England started in the 19th century. So we have Al-Fasi's Rihla al-Ibriziyya, and we have Jaidi, and then Al-Ghassal and others. So it's interesting that in the 19th century, Moroccans started to document Britain. To go back to the beginning, Professor Ouaouicha referred to the 13th century, and that is very important because King John asked military support because he was challenged by the barons, and he wanted Moroccan support. And this military support, we also see it with Queen Elizabeth. Here, Moroccan relation with Britain really flourished, and that is because Morocco defeated one of the enemies of Britain, Portugal, Catholic Portugal, who Don Sebastian vowed that after Morocco he will try to invade Britain. So the British were really interested in what will happen in Morocco and what the battle will end. So when Morocco defeated Portugal, there was huge celebrations in England, and also huge celebrations by merchants, by British merchants here in Morocco. And it was at the time that Morocco sent this ambassador, Noon, who is known. There are portraits of him, etc. I know there is a panel on Morocco and Shakespeare, and there will be presentations on that. What is important about this ambassador is, first of all, he was visually present throughout London streets, because to disguise the negotiation for a military alliance between Britain and Morocco, he disguised himself as a merchant. So we see him every day every day going to the markets and asking for the prices, so that to camouflage his political mission. What was his political mission, actually? It was a proposal by Queen Elizabeth to establish a military alliance against Spain. A joint attack on Spain. What was Al-Mansur Dehbi's response? Very clever response. Mansur Dehbi did not want a war on his doorsteps. So his proposal is a long letter. So he seriously thought about it, with details about how to go about it, how to finance it, what soldiers to be involved, is to invade Latin America. Because he said, That's the basis of the strength of Britain. If we want to defeat Britain, that's what we need to defeat it. I will supply money, and I will supply soldiers, you supply ships. And then we conquer Spain in, in the Indies. Then it's up to us. Let's negotiate. And that's why Moroccan ambassador was in England. To negotiate what? How we are going to divide the land in the land, because he says in the letter, it's too hot for your soldiers. So maybe you might consider our soldiers conquering it. Of course, we will divide the treasures. He said that we'll divide the treasures, but we'll talk about that. So it's very interesting. And it's very interesting that his embassy influenced Shakespeare, Othello, and many other literary works. And Morocco defeated Portugal also thanks to Britain, because Britain sent guns and weapons. But also these guns and weapons were manufactured with Moroccan resources. Morocco was sending saltpeter, which was used in the manufacturing of explosives. But it also sent sugar. Morocco also sent sugar, not only explosives, but also sugar. And we will visit sugar at the end of the presentation if I have time as well. So the second interesting event was Professor Laamiri has referred to Jodar. Jodar visited England because to thank Charles I for helping Morocco defeat the Republic of Salé. The Republic of Salé, by the Andalusians, they wanted to establish a republic, and Britain sent a fleet, defeated the Salatines, and set free so many British slaves. And he went to England to thank Charles for this military alliance against a common enemy. The common enemy in this case are the Salatines, they are the Moroccans, they are the Andalusians. So when he went, he took with him British slaves liberated, but also horses, hawks. And when they walked through the streets, he was also carrying these horses, which is really interesting because it says here, and he was celebrated by poetry. There were poems written on him. And there was a chronicler at the time who said that although he's commenting on Jodar's visit and the military alliance, although Morocco and Britain are, I quote, are far remote from each other in religion and territories, yet they are conjoined in league and friendship together. So it's interesting, this alliance. In the late 17th century, the English occupied the city of Tangier, not by force, but by marriage. When Charles II married Princess of Braganza, it was given to him as a gift. And he wanted to expand the boundaries of the colony, and he wanted to build new fortifications. But Moulay Ismail said no, because he has a plan of liberating all the occupied cities. He said, no, you cannot. I can give you a truce, we can agree on a truce, and then you leave. But Charles II wanted really to establish a long-term colony in Tangier. So he sent an ambassador to Morocco. The ambassador had to stay in Tangier to wait for the presents. So he waited for the presents. When eventually the presents came, he made his way into Meknes. But the negotiation fails because, on the one hand, Moulay Ismail was insisting on a truce for a certain period and then evacuation of Tangier, but the English insisted of remaining. But there is another reason why it failed, because of the gifts. The cloth that England sent they were destroyed in bad weather. The muskets that it sent exploded on firing. And then the ponies, the English sent ponies, 5 ponies, but when Moulay Ismail saw them, he thought they are not small enough. So, it affected the negotiations. But Ben Haddou, I mean, he should be taught in Moroccan diplomacy, actually. This episode of Ben Haddou actually should be taught, really. And the letters, when he returned, he wrote letters to Charles II. Letters advising him how to deal with the issue of Tangier, advising them actually to evacuate Tangier, and he gives them reasons. They're long letters. They're translated in a book called Barbary, Letters from Barbary, translated. So there's a huge amount of letters exchanged between the two countries. Let's move to the Gibraltar. Gibraltar it became British in 1704, but it was besieged by the Spaniards. And I think it could not have survived without the assistance of the Moroccans, who supplied water and food and everything. And so the Moulay Ismail's negotiations and exchanges with Queen Anne were basically related to Gibraltar. Professor Laamiri has referred to the spotted deer, and that's very important. If you see the letters, so many letters exchanged on how they should look. She sent first the wrong ones. He said, no, not these ones. That's the one I wanted. Explaining like the ones that the King of France sent me, etc. And then he explains why. Why does Moulay Ismail want these spotted gazelles? He gives her two reasons to Queen Anne. First one, he says, I have a small zoo at the outskirts of the palace, and I want the Moroccans to see the spotted gazelles. The second one is interesting. He says, because they are against the evil eye. And he wrote this in the letter. But there is also a complaint from Moulay Ismail to Queen Anne. He says, why do you rarely write to me? If you remember, he says, the correspondence between Mansour Dehbi and Queen Elizabeth, they were so frequent that people thought they were going to get engaged. And that is in a letter by Moulay Ismail to Queen Anne. Let me try to finish. In the 19th century, and we're now talking about the 19th century, one of the gifts that were given to Moroccans by British envoys and ambassadors was tea. Tea was given. For example, here, particularly to the women to the women in the palace. Basically, as Professor Laamiri has referred to, because women are important in the diplomacy. So ambassadors started to bring tea to women of the palace. And we have here, for example, Balqis, who was given 20 pounds of the finest tea. And later on, and that is in 1715, and in 1789, William Lompriere, he has a list in his book to Lalla Ftoum, the queen of the harem, a set of elegant and small cups and saucers. Lalla Dawiya, and he gives her also a set of cups and tea. And then Lalla Zahra. So he has all his list of sugar and tea and tea utensils. During his travel to Morocco in the late 18th century, Gabriel Charmes, he's French, he jealously noted the Moroccans drink, in Morocco, the drink one is offered everywhere is tea. As though the English, have been here. However, he noted with satisfaction as a redeeming factor that the Moroccans do not drink British tea as it is, but they have added mint. So this gives him solace. The Moroccans changed. And he says, which prevents, I quote, which prevents it from resembling the detestable English tea. So through diplomacy, tea entered into Morocco, and quickly it became the national beverage. And there is a poem by a Moroccan in the 19th century who celebrates tea. He talks about it is pure and sweet as cloud of rains. I am translating from Arabic, such as the golden London tea on the sparkling tray. When you drink it, sorrow departs from who he drinks it, and his breast abounds with joy. So when Moroccans drink tea or offer it to their guests, they are in fact celebrating a long history of a thriving diplomacy, diplomatic encounters between Morocco and Britain. Thank you.
I'd like to thank you.
I don't have his name here, but I can send it to you.
I'd like the audience for being very attentive, but I'd like to thank the panelists for actually sticking to the time in a very wide topic. We do have, 6 or 7 minutes for questions, provided they are brief, 1 minute, so that people can react to it. Yes, Hafsa.
Yes. First of all, I'd like to thank you all. Big thank you to Professor Laamiri, who helped me organize all these panel discussions for this session of the International Book Fair in Rabat. And in fact, in February 23, we had a gathering with Mr. Minister, Mr. Bin Said, and I mentioned and coming back to you, Mr. Tom Hill, that young Moroccans today are speaking English in the street, and that the British had an international book fair in Marrakesh, and I turned to the publishers and I said, get ready, young people today are going to publish in English. And this afternoon I have a panel discussion with young Moroccan writers in English. Okay, one thing that I'm very proud of in preparing those, I'm proud of everybody, but you mentioned the relationship between Queen Elizabeth I and Mansour Dahabi, and I was very happy that 6 years ago, I read The Sultan and the Queen by Jerry Broughton, and Jerry Broughton is going to be with us next week, signing a new book, by the way, at the British stand here. So thank you very much. There was just a thank you, and I think the future of English in Morocco is great. Thank you.
Thank you. Hassan.
Like just to mention one dimension, a little bit missing, except for one reference by Si Mohamed Laamiri, and that's the art dimension, the paintings and everything about these relations. I think it would be interesting to kind of envisage a catalog of all the paintings about this particular subject of Moroccan British relations. Thank you.
The only consolation is we do have a little exhibit here of early exchange of documents and some paintings of early ambassadors. When you have time, they're just outside. Yes.
As you talk about paintings, let me mention a very important thing with, thank you. With Charles II, when Zawdar returned, he brought with him two very important things. First was a coach, and coaches have become part of royal display in Morocco. Coaches, and that's the first time that a coach was sent, actually. But there are coaches sent to Moulay Ismail and coaches sent from Holland as well later on. And there was with Sidi Mohamed Abdullah, he has a collection of historical coaches. So that is important. But the second one is he also sent Charles II sent a portrait of himself and the Queen to Moulay Sheikh. So that is important in terms of exchange. It's not simply a quote, but also I want you to see how I look. So a lot of paintings. And when you look at Moroccan ambassadors, there are most of them who have left great impact in these relations. Their portraits are painted. If you see Ben Haddou, for example, there are about 10 different portraits of him painted by British painters. So that is extraordinary, actually. Thank you.
Just a question. Do you have a list of historical novels?
Here.
Thank you. Do you have a list of historical novels that you can recommend covering the diplomatic relations between Morocco and Great Britain?
I suggest that you meet with Mr. Laamiri and Mr. Kawi. I think they have long lists. But
Yeah,
in 5 minutes, we'll finish in 5 minutes. Yeah.
Yes, I just would like once again to thank you, Mr. Laamiri, and for this bright description of our past relationship. But the future relationship, and I'm addressing Mr. Tom Hill, I translated a few months ago a film on Morocco, the Green Kingdom. And I learned through translation that we are going to furnish, supply London, 7,000 houses in London with Moroccan electricity through the Atlantic. So this is a very beautiful idea, you know, even poetically it's nice, you know, to give some light to London.
Well, I just want to add something. My colleague, Professor Kawi, has spoken about tea. I want to say something about sugar. Yes, Moroccan sugar was so rare that is at the beginning it is a delicacy. Only the aristocrats and the bourgeois could afford sugar. And there was an ambassador who came to Morocco, and after long negotiations, he was allowed, that is, Britain was allowed to import sugar from Morocco. And this was a rare delicacy, and people used to eat it just like that. And when they received guests, they gave them sugar to eat. Unfortunately, for Queen Elizabeth, she ate so much that it destroyed her teeth. She had black teeth. And so we say that Moroccan sugar destroyed Elizabeth's teeth. This is just, yeah.
Some of the bad.
It was fashion. Yeah. And they used honey to brush their teeth at the time. And Elizabeth did not like dentists, so she lost her teeth, and at the end they couldn't even understand her because.
Any more questions? Otherwise, we finish on time. It's exactly 12. We thank you all. Yeah, British time. We began on time and we finish on time. And British weather as well. So that's so thank you all very much. Please thank the panelists for the.
And I want to take a picture with
هذه الجلسة حلوة بيت السكر المغربي.
I want to take a picture with you all.
كريم على الابيض.
Bien sûr.
دابا في المستقبل نعملوا العلاقات الثقافية والحضارية بين بريطانيا والفنية. محمد بن علي الرباطي تعلم على يد إنجليزي في طنجة، والسيدة كين التي تزوجت بشريف دوزان وأدت خدمات اجتماعية كثيرة، ثم الكثير من الأعمال الشيقة تقام الآن على يد الأساتذة المغاربة الوفود المعرفية اللي هي جميلة جدا. الحمد لله. وبطبيعة الحال العمل الذي تقوم به الأميرة لالا جمالة بعلاقات جيدة ثقافية مع المملكة البريطانية.
مساعدة جد ثمينة من سيد كريم. لا تبارك الله عليكم. والمعرض هنا the exhibit if you have a few minutes you can
And
look at
Shakespeare
the
on
early
Friday.
documents.
Friday, 2 o'clock,
Okay.
and Ofo.
Thank you all.
Yep. Shakespeare and Morocco.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Mr. Hill.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you.
صباح النور.
I didn't want to bring the camera so I must maximize my background now.